Welcome to the Traitors, a Traitors podcast. My name is David Bloomberg, and I'm your host for Season 1 of the Traitors Canada. The Traitors features deep dives into every episode of the multi-award-winning hit TV competition show, The Traitors, as well as interviews with contestants from the shows. Plus, this week, we've also gone in a slightly different direction and starting a series on Survivor UK. But today is still the Traitors Canada, specifically episode 5. And I have another great guest as I welcome Abigail Adams from People.com and the Wicked Unscripted podcast. Sorry, I almost mangled your podcast name there.
Oh, don't worry. I mean, when I start my own podcast, I'm pretty sure like 50% of the time that's how I started is just There's some sort of flub in there. So it's on brand. You're good.
The best flub I ever had was I started a podcast and I messed it up in the first 3 words, and then I dropped a massive F-bomb and then sent notes to the editor. No, it wasn't this podcast. Sent notes to the editor and said, hey, here's a part that you need to take out. And they forgot. And so it went out live and I started getting messages like, did you know that you kept that in
there?
Whoops.
Podcasting is no fine art.
Yes. Now, I should also mention Abigail is a fellow reality TV TikToker, which is how we met.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. It's been like a couple years of us going back and forth on TikTok and Twitter. So X now, I guess.
No, it's Twitter. It will always be Twitter.
It's always Twitter.
Yes.
But yeah, and it's been super fun. So I'm like glad we finally get to do this together one-on-one.
Yes. Now, how have you been enjoying the Traitors Canada?
It's great, honestly. One of the only, like, my first introduction to the show in general was Traitors US. And so I really was interested to see how this format of having only 8 traitors be from reality television and then have the other 12 be not recruits, but be normal people.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of a risky move at first, but from the way it's playing out, I'm really enjoying it so far. It seems to be a healthy balance. The people they've cast so far are perfect. I mean, Kuzi, you couldn't ask, in my opinion, for much more. Like, I saw her on the cast and I was like, done. Traitor, she's going to win this. She could walk away. I mean, definitely some questions now, but but still so entertaining. Everything I could ask for in a season.
Yeah, and what seems to be happening is different from some of the other seasons of mixed casts, which is they are, the so-called normal people, are willing to go after the celebrities. You know, we'll talk about one now. You know, they're not following along as much as has happened in some other seasons. When I did my interview with Melissa B, she said, I love Kevin, but I was, ready to kill him. So, it's just
understandable.
Yeah. So, well, before we go too much further here, let's set up the fan favorite Traitor game. You are aware of this, but in case anybody else is listening who isn't, we will each lie to each other once during the podcast. The lie can be big or small about the traitors, yourself, or anything else, as long as it is a complete fabrication. However, we are looking for fake facts, not opinions. Like I can't say that, I forgot to come up with a fake lie to say that I wasn't going to say. But this is, last time I said I wish I couldn't say I wish I would that Kate would have won the Traitors US, because I really did not like Kate. But if there's a number involved, as I have mentioned, it needs to be an order of magnitude. So I can't say that I have 6 pages of notes when I have 7. I would have to say that I have 70 pages of notes. And you'd be like, really, David? Yeah, that's a little too detail oriented. So then at the end of the episode, we'll put our traitor hunting skills to the test and see if we can detect each other's lie. Are you ready to betray me?
I hope so.
Oh,
and I am.
All right. Well, in that case, our game begins now. And so does the episode. We start episode 5 where episode 4 left off, on an annoying cliffhanger in the middle of the votes at the round table. Now, as a reminder, Rick and Mary had voted Trevon, Crystal voted May and Trevon voted Rick. Next up is Kevin, who told us in confessional last week, a rather amusing confessional, that he didn't think Travon was a traitor, but just the worst faithful ever. He tones that down a little bit while making his vote, saying Travon is either a traitor or an out-of-control faithful. Gerline votes Rick. Fierce listens to their traitor detector ring and votes Rick. And then so do Mike, Rick, sorry, obviously Rick doesn't, Mike, Leroy, Dom, Mickey, Koozie, and very psychic Donna. So my prediction from last week was correct, and Rick really was a temp in this game, not making it halfway through the season. And I'm very annoyed that Kareen made the same Rick the Temp joke that I did after I had already written it in my notes.
I was going to say, I heard that and I was just like, damn it, stole that line right from it.
I had already written it in my notes. I wasn't letting her take that from me.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I'm not surprised, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Rick he said he was like, he loved the game, but it didn't seem like he was nearly as invested as nearly everybody else.
Or maybe he was too invested. Like,
true.
I think he just really got into it and was super traitor hunting and everything else. And I think he was a little too invested in the concept that the host promotes rather than the game.
Exactly. That's what I found was like a really interesting mismatch in the way he played the game, because he was some of the things he did, it's like, if you're such a fan of the game, you would think that this would be a really big mistake. Like the way he's going after somebody that he thinks is a traitor, it's like, this is not how you approach it when it comes to how he was approaching Mai. And it's like, that is not, you can do it if that's how you think that you're gonna get a traitor out of the game, but clearly someone hasn't studied the strategy very much.
Yeah, I mean, we see that a lot. We see people on Survivor, Big Brother, they say they're fans of the game, and then they get in there and no, they were fans of the show.
Yes.
Not the game. And you see that a lot. I mean, Big Brother is, it's a key place for that, where they don't really understand the strategy. They watched the show. And even on Survivor, I mean, we had, 2 quits this season on Survivor from people who said they were, and, they were fans of the game, fans of the show, but it just wasn't what they thought. And so, and even without quits, we frequently see people just not playing the right way.
Yeah.
And so, Rick gets up, announces to everyone he's a faithful. Fierce is shocked. Mary is like, yeah, told you so. And then Rick, to us, blames the traitors for getting people talking about him. But really, Rick, the traitors didn't have to do a whole lot of work. You mostly did their work for them. And then the faithfuls just, latched on to you because you were doing things like strongly going after Colin.
Yeah, outside of Mel B, I mean, everybody's done a really good job of even including Mel B, done a really good job of putting the target on their own back. You know what I mean? The traitors haven't had to do much this season in terms of, because and we'll talk about it obviously later, but Koozie's just kind of like, do I really need to put in this effort to try and get this person out, or do I just let them do it on their own? Because clearly and it's insane how it's like all of these things that the traitors are like, all right, think it might be time to go for this person. The faithfuls are already like one step ahead of them. It's like their hands are fairly clean at this point.
Yeah. They just keep knocking each other off. I mean, it's not Australian season 2 levels of faithful behavior yet, but
no, not even close.
Yeah. So after the vote, Travon gives us an emotional confessional about how frustrated he is. He can't trust his reads. Everything he's done has been wrong. I mean, he's right about all those things, but at least he sees that, because some previous faithfuls in other seasons, including one I might have just mentioned, have been at least as wrong as him and always kept their confidence level high. Like, it didn't matter. They could have gotten 8 in a row wrong, but damn it, they were sure about the 9th one.
Yeah, so, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was. It's fine. So up to Traitors Tower we go. We saw some previews last week that suggested to me that Koozie and Mike would recruit, but there is zero discussion of that. which means it must happen at the end of the episode instead of the beginning, because they snuck two of them in here thanks to leaving us on a cliffhanger. Those tricky editors.
Gotta love this edit. I mean, I don't mind having a to be continued if it's going to have some sort of like epic climax at the end. And I mean, it's just, it felt like to do it for Rick, it just didn't feel like it fit.
I think they wanted Rick on one more.
Looked for.
Sorry, I think they wanted Rick on one more episode.
Yeah, well, that's a good point too. And then also, I mean, it did set up a nice way for them to enter this upcoming episode. So I don't think editing wise it was a bad choice. It's just as a fan, I'm like, do a to be continued when I want one.
Yes. And also, I felt that, as we'll talk about through the episode, now maybe there wasn't much material in this episode, but it was definitely shortened. Like there was,
for sure.
We'll get there, but like there was no discussion between the car ride and going to the armory. It was like, boom, we're there, magic, and it was, okay, I guess nothing important happened during that time, but we're not there yet. Kuzi in the tower brings up Kevin because he's been so strong-minded. Crystal has been a little suspicious of Kuzi and very suspicious of Mike. Excuse me. And then Fierce is on the list as well. So who were you thinking in that moment was going?
I mean, I thought Crystal really was like the way that Crystal had started coming on to both Mike and Kuzi. I thought the way that Kuzi started picking up on that, just immediately the way she started discussing Crystal, I was like, especially with how strong-minded she can be when she wants somebody out, I was like, ooh, that seems, for pun intended, seems like a death sentence for her. So, but I mean, I thought originally when Kevin was brought up, because Kevin was the first person, I was like, oh, yikes. And then as soon as she brought up Crystal, I was like, oh no, double yikes. That's it. Never mind. So they fooled me with the first one, but like, I was questioning whether it was the right move. I still wonder right now if it was the right move.
Right, yeah.
Because Crystal was a part of Kuzi's team, and Kuzi walked in with the shield. So the whole plan was, okay, we're going to protect the whole red team. And ultimately, Kuzi was like, maybe I'm just going to take a shot at somebody on my own team, and I don't care. And was it the right move? I don't know.
Yeah. And well, let's get through breakfast, and because the traitor or the faithful themselves had some thoughts on that. So we go through breakfast. Donna, May, and Leroy come in first, and Mary, Dom, Melissa, Gerline, and Kevin join them. So that answers one part of the question. Kevin tells us he's been solidly with one group, but he wants to make a game move and get closer to Donna, Mickey, and Melissa. Mike enters with a flourish of flash paper, which I reenacted for Halloween on my Twitter and Instagram. If you want to see that, so go check those out. May points out to him that everybody from the team that didn't get the armory visit is there except Travon, meaning if Travon ends up walking in, the traitors may have targeted someone who might have had the shield, as we were just talking about. Kuzi joins them, as does Fierce, who says they hate Kevin. Now, my initial guess was that Fierce hated Kevin because Kevin didn't save Fierce a seat at breakfast next to him. I mean, that was the most obvious to me. But it turns out it was actually game related. Kevin tells others that if he had led the charge at the round table that was wrong, like Fierce had done, he'd come in with a humble attitude, not being pissed for no apparent reason. Yeah, that's you, Kevin, not Fierce. Travon, of course, comes in. So that means Crystal is gone. And as you said, the traitors, there might have been a traitor amongst the group who got the shield. And yeah, this was, it is, like you said, it's always a risky move. We've seen it happen once before on a different international season when the numbers were much lower. And like it was almost a 50-50 shot, I think. And they got it wrong. This time, the numbers are at least still large enough that you could see the traitors, taking that shot. I still think it was a bad move, but, I think that they weighed out their options and decided that getting rid of Crystal was more important than worrying about, well, they're going to know that one of us was on this team.
I feel like that was the big oversight here. And I feel like maybe it was because they felt so threatened because this is definitely, I think, the most they felt threatened since the game began. And I feel like they definitely let their fear kind of take control in this decision. And I don't think that that's necessarily wrong because they were looking at Kevin too, out of fear for their own games. But Kevin was on a different team, so it's interesting to see. I wish we could know a little bit more behind that decision making because that was one of the things when I first saw it, I was like, not the worst decision, I guess. But as the episode went on, I was like, ooh, no, it was such a glaring mistake, and it makes me concerned for both of their games at this point.
Yeah. That is the interesting part, is that although Crystal was vocal about who she suspected, especially being Mike, in this episode, at least, we didn't see anyone bring that up. Now, maybe it'll happen next week because we've seen that. We saw that with Melissa. We saw that with even Rick, where the suspicion would rise in one episode and then it would fall another episode, and then people would remember again and pick it up the next episode. Of course, probably it's always in the background, but if it's not important to the ending of each episode, then they leave it out. Maybe they stick it in at the they move it around a little in the edit there.
I noticed that as well.
So Melissa talks to Trevon and doesn't think May is a traitor, but does believe Mary is. Trevon, being Trevon, of course, starts analyzing Mary's behavior to find clues that support this incorrect premise. And Melissa also talks to Leroy with the same idea. And this is sort of the kind of, it's called anomaly hunting when you're looking at like scientific papers and the things. And that's what it is. It's like, okay, if you get it in your mind that someone's a traitor, you can find things that in your mind make them a traitor that you wouldn't normally have said. It's kind of like Melissa said when she was about to be banished. She said, you're just looking for things that make you think I'm a traitor, not things that make you think I'm a faithful. Which, as we said at the time, yes, that's true. That's what they do.
That is the point.
So we finally get to hear why Fierce is so mad at Kevin. It's for changing his vote at the round table and making Fierce look bad. Sorry, Fierce, you made yourself look bad by targeting the wrong person. Yeah. And, Kevin goes into this whole spiel like, we can't be in lockstep and we've got to separate. But Fierce isn't happy about that and mentally kicks Kevin out of their alliance.
It's funny because they just made that decision on their own. They're just like, it's over. And it's like, says who? Says you?
Yeah.
And it, watching these first few episodes, they seemed like a really dynamic duo. It was such an abrupt change. And I mean, really detrimental to Fierce's game. I don't know what they were thinking. I understand being upset. Just like abysmal gameplay because it's just like, what do you think is going to happen when you react this way to your number one?
Yeah.
So I when I saw that, I still have to pick up my jaw from the floor sometimes because it's just like, I don't understand. I get being upset, but it was just totally the wrong move.
Yeah. 100%. Now, Kevin has been holding back his own opinions mostly, but goes to Gurleen, which is funny because Gurleen was someone in the alliance that, Fierce supposedly kicked Kevin out of. But so Kevin thinks Mary is a traitor, but they shouldn't target her so they can get to the final 8. I don't know exactly how he did his math in terms of the final 8, but okay. So they have to alter their games so they don't get murdered because his reputation is too good. So he needs to lead a charge and miss, possibly taking Fierce off the board. As he says, Fierce is so bad at this game. This is the type of strategy I want to see in this game. This is the type of strategy I have discussed. And so thank you, Kevin. I knew we could count on you.
Yeah, I agree. Round of applause. Because this is like a really important strategy. Again, don't know really where he came up with the number 8, but it's one of the core strategies that I think gets missed by rookies or people who aren't super familiar with playing this game. And honestly, it's kind of simple. It seems to sit right in front of your face. I mean, how a lot of this game doesn't involve luck, but in order to avoid that and keep yourself in the best position possible, you need to be on the traitor side. As much as like you're like, I'm a faithful and I'm on a different side, you have to make sure that you are on who you think is the traitor side, because you're going to manage to keep your hands clean as best as possible.
Yeah, exactly. People, and I've said this before, it is like when Jeff Probst gets out on Survivor and tells the players, you have to make big moves to win this game. And I sit here on my podcast and say, do not under any circumstance listen to Jeff Probst and make big moves. And it's the same thing. Every host of the Traitors gets out there and says, faithful, you must hunt the traitors. No, you don't have to. Because you know what? If you hunt too many of them, they're just going to recruit more. So it doesn't matter. Hunt them at the end. At the beginning, do what you want.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's good to be able to say, like, hey, you have a really bad, like, you can have bad reads, deciding who is more, because the faithful have to make sure that they don't Jesus, I'm just all over the place. Apologies, my brain. In order to avoid being the target, you have to have what we just talked about with the traitor, aligning with the traitors. But it's important to what we've seen before, where it's like weeding out some of the like obvious answers that are obviously not the traitors. I would say that would actually be one of the smarter strategies. I'm still newer to the game, so I would assume that would be a good strategy. But like, so keeping Trayvon in the game, I mean, on one hand is good because you know he's not a traitor. He's very obviously a faithful if you're smart. So I don't know. I can see it both ways, wanting to keep somebody in the house like that or in the mansion like that, but also wanting to immediately go after them and kind of show that, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. And actually, during the drive to the mission, Trayvon notes if he were a traitor, he wouldn't be acting the way he's acting. I can't argue with that unless he's a really bad traitor.
Right. Well, that's just, I guess that's pretty much what I was trying to get at with all of that, is like, he's so obviously a faithful. And it's just like, at that point, what is your best move with him? Because
as a faithful or as a traitor?
Both.
Yeah. I mean, as a faithful, it depends, because if he is, I mean, there have been other seasons where someone has purposely voted off someone they knew to be a faithful just because they were causing too many fights in the house. Yeah, they were causing too much ruckus. And it's like, no, you're probably a faithful, but we need to get you out of here. So if he keeps doing that and distracting people, then it may be best just to get rid of him. But otherwise, leave him in there.
Right.
See if you can get him on, kind of like Melissa's trying to do. See if you can rope him in. Now she's roping him in to target the wrong person, but.
Right. That's where I sit, where it's like, I guess on one hand, it can be really helpful to have somebody like him in the game. But on the other hand, it's like, please get out. Please, you are causing too much chaos. Yeah. And to some degree, that's not going to be helpful when you do need to get down the line and track down the traitors. Because like right now, like you said, it's not necessarily the biggest deal when you're not getting a traitor out every time. Would you like to be nailing the traitors every time? Of course you do. But I feel like in especially a game like this, where you're halfway through the game and still two traitors left that their names have kind of been thrown out, but they're not under high suspicion.
Right.
It's kind of an interesting strategy, and I'm going to be curious to see which route they wind up taking moving forward.
Yeah, I want to see. So this is like next level traitor strategy. I want to see in the next round of seasons, someone be picked as a traitor and act like a Trayvon. Act like just totally clueless, lie for no reason, admit the lie for no reason, and then turn around and say, obviously, I'm not a traitor. Now, it is a risky move, but, if you can get past those initial those initial suspicions, you're golden, because no one will believe you're a traitor after that.
No, I think that'd be fun. I would you'd have to have some serious chutzpah to do that.
Yes.
You have to literally like go on it and be like, if I lose, I lose, but I just want to try.
Yes.
I'd be so here for that person though. I would be behind them 100%.
Yes.
So
anyone listening who's doing research, this is what we want to see. Go crazy. So
we want to see you be the worst faithful as a
traitor. Yes.
Please do it. Please. That's the best.
Like Quentin, or as a traitor. Can you imagine?
Well, that was one of the things when Quentin wasn't brought up. I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's one of those things where it's like, well, if he's being so bad and just like aiming in the wrong direction every time, wouldn't you think that would be the person who would be the traitor? So when we got down to that end, that was wild.
Yes. It was a much better end for Suri than will be in a couple days as we're recording this. So.
Lord, sad face.
Yes.
So many sad faces.
All right. So the players arrive at a church full of people in gold masks. And we've, of course, seen this mission before in almost every season of the show, possibly every season of the show. One member of each team gets a clue from Kareen in the confessional. And I'm talking like priestly confessional, not like a reality TV confessional. And then they have to find the congregant it describes to earn gold for $2,000. There are 3 rounds with the winning team going to the armory. Fierce quickly gets the gold for Team 1, while Kevin and May seem very confused at even trying to get the riddle for Team 2. In the second round, Team 1 has problems figuring it out, but they eventually get there. Team 2 thought they had the right clue, but in his own words, Kevin choked counting the paragraphs. Math is hard.
Okay, I can't judge though because I couldn't do that. So I mean,
he plays poker for a living. He does
know.
math for a living.
Okay, I judge a little bit, but like as somebody who doesn't do math well, I can't be one to just stand there and just be like just totally judgmental of him. But I mean, it's rough. It's rough when you're a poker player.
I mean, they thought that there was a throw in the previous competition. How did someone not think Kevin was throwing here?
Absolutely. That was the other question that I was having is like, if people are going to be wondering, because he's playing hard right now, he's definitely raising some red flags for people. And it's just like that. This probably was not the best time to and I mean, obviously, it was technically in his control, but he just screwed up. He tried. And it's like that could potentially come back to sink his game, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's because Rick wasn't there anymore. And Rick was the one really pushing because everything was so Rick centric in that worldview. It was like, she's throwing because she wants to get me out and she doesn't want me to have the shield. And it's like, yeah, Rick, that's not in no world is that happening.
Not even close.
So, in the third round, Team 1 figures it out quickly again, although, Team 2, they didn't have much on the line other than pride at that point. So Team 1 was responsible for all $6,000 added to the pot, and obviously they get the armory visit. And as I had mentioned earlier, we head straight to the armory. Going, as they all go through, Mickey gets it, which I think is pretty meaningless because he's not a target. And at this point, I'm still thinking the Traitors will recruit instead tonight. We'll find out. But either way, Mickey is just like, yay. I mean, Mickey's name was brought up by the Traitors once a couple weeks ago, but I mean, he's a possible target because nobody thinks he's a traitor, but So Kevin starts pushing his anti-fierce campaign. May believes this is what a traitor would do, so her reads continue to be as accurate as ever. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, she's from MasterChef, so it's not like she's used to these kinds of games.
Yes.
Dear Lord, these reads are bad sometimes.
That's why it was so funny when Rick asked last week, like, did you win your show? It's like, what's the difference? It's MasterChef.
I howled when that happened. Yeah. Oh my God. That was a great moment.
Now, speaking of spot on gameplay, Trevon is feeling people out in terms of whether his name is still out there. Leroy gives him almost a brick wall. Trevon tries to break through with some emotion and says he's just been failing and failing and failing and failing. So if they're going to banish him, just do it. Melissa, however, doesn't think Trevon is a traitor. She asks May and Donna if they should go with the group or put Mary's name down. The correct answer is to not put Mary's name down. So they really believe she's a traitor, but if you don't have the numbers, you do not put her name down because she will murder you. Now, in this case, you're wrong, so it doesn't matter. But in theory, you don't do that.
It just feels like a lot of these people are just playing blindly, like with no sense of what a traitor would want. Like if they're thinking more as faithfuls than traitors at this point, it's like, why would a traitor feel comfortable with anybody who wrote down their name? Right. Any single person that automatically puts your name, like you're an automatic target. So numbers are huge, and I feel like without stronger alliances, like these people are kind of all over the place right now, and without solidifying something more, they're not going to get anywhere with targeting legitimate traitors.
Yeah. I mean, all they have to do is look at Gerpyar. What happened? He mentioned Mike. He voted for Mike. He was gone. Now, they don't know Mike's a traitor, but they know that he was a one-man show out there, giving his thoughts, and suddenly he was gone. They think it was a double bluff, that someone did it to make it look like Mike was a traitor. Well, okay, if Mary is not a traitor, then someone could still use you for that same reason. So yeah,
exactly.
Don't go off on your own. Kevin and Gerline debate whether to pull the trigger on Fierce or if Kevin will just get murdered. He correctly says that if the traitors have a brain, they should take him out. He's just hoping, he's just hoping he's put in enough work to save himself. At this point, there has been so much Kevin in this episode. Like literally, when I make my TikTok videos, I went through and I looked at the different things that I was planning to make for this one. And it was like, Kevin says this, Kevin says that, Kevin says this. I'm like, oh, like all of them are going to be Kevin this week. Okay. He just had so much stuff to say.
Well, and he's such a character. He's getting quite the edit. Like his edit is definitely like something I'm keeping an eye on, because the way he's being played as this mastermind, it's like, is this going to not pan out well for him? Is this a potential faithful winners edit? I'm curious to see, because he is just like superstar number one right now in terms of like where this is going. He's leading this storyline.
I mean, it could be like they did with Erica in episode 1. They knew they were only going to have her for one episode, so they blasted her all over the place in that one episode. He's been on Big Brother twice. He plays poker on streams. He knows how to play himself up, and he's good at the game. So I think he's just giving them a lot of material, and he ended up, leading a charge he didn't even know he was leading, as we'll get into here. But I don't know. Part of me feels like his days are numbered, or else he's going to be recruited. There's no way in hell I would recruit him if I were a traitor.
Oh yeah. But I think it's one or the other. You're not going to have a happy medium.
Yeah. So we go to the round table, and Kevin opens by saying Mike is a gaming geek, but he hasn't been playing like one, just listening and reflecting it back, which, again, very interesting and good observation from Kevin. Mike tries to say, he called out Melissa B, but Kevin again notes that Mike just heard it was happening and then jumped in front of it, which is 100% true. Kevin has a dead-on read. Whether he realizes it or not, he has Mike dead to rights here.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just one of those things, though, where we go back to numbers and do you really want to be putting this target on your back? Obviously, he's not writing down Mike right now. He's just kind of calling him out. But it's like, is that the right move? You have to be, every word is so important in this game, and it's like showing your hand. He should know. I'm gonna bring in another pun. He's got poker background, and he's tilting his hand right now by telling Mike what he actually thinks about him. You know what I mean? It's like, no one's saying don't tell this to your allies that you are like, I am positive you are not traitors. This is what I feel. if you're suspicious of somebody, that's especially at the round table in front of everybody, it's a ballsy move.
Yeah. All right. Now I'm going to have to do this so that we don't get messages, or maybe we should get messages. Tilting does not mean what you just said quite. He's showing his hand. Tilting means being angry at the table and playing bad because of it.
Oh my God. I used the wrong terminology.
You're the wrong totally poker terminology. So
God forbid.
Yes.
Don't worry. Thank you for that.
You've been on social media,
I do not know poker. It's an ageless game.
Now, maybe he was doing it. So here's what I think. I think he was going at Mike so that he could then turn to Fierce, which he does next.
True.
And it wouldn't seem so obvious. Like he's just naming off a variety of people. Mm-hmm. And so he talks about Fierce, noting how wrong Fierce was about Rick. And Kevin tells us, I'm not actually looking to get Fierce this time, but next time I'm just planting seeds. And he says Fierce has been the most confident and the most wrong, but Fierce is like, well, I was right about Melissa. Okay, once.
Slow clap.
Mary goes after Trevon for his initial lie again. He defends himself by saying they need to look beyond the obvious. Leroy says someone on Crystal's team from last week is responsible. Fierce asks for the person who got the shield to please stand up, basically. And it's like, no, they're not going to. They all deny it. And then that's it. We're cut short. That's the whole round table that we see. Time to vote. As we're headed into the vote, I'm thinking, yeah, they're finally just going to get rid of Trevon because there just hasn't been much else. But then, okay, so we start with May votes Trevon. Trevon votes Mary. Kevin votes Trevon. Gerline says it looks like Trevon has given up, which a traitor wouldn't do. Now, I'm not sure I fully agree with that. There's been at least one season where a traitor did basically give up, or two, if you count right at the end. But she votes May. Fierce votes May. Mike votes Trevon. Melissa votes Fierce. And then all of a sudden, so do Leroy, Mickey, Dom, Mary, and very psychic Donna. It's funny because Kevin thought he was just planting seeds, but there was a very, very quick growing season and harvest there. As Mary said, she has never seen anyone so proud to be so loud and so wrong every day. And so, yeah, Fierce is out just like that. Goes to the circle of truth, proclaims being a faithful, and walks out with style.
I mean, I feel like this is another example of because I can't remember. I think it was Leroy who just was like, you're just being erratic right now. And I just feel like it's one of those examples of be careful of how open, not just open and honest, but just like expressing these very bold emotions and being so all over the place. You know what I mean? I think that was one of the reasons that Rick didn't last super long. And I think we're now seeing it again with Fierce. You know what I mean? And I thought Fierce before this was at a decent spot. I didn't think they were in the best spot, but I wasn't looking at them as somebody who was going to be leaving all too soon unless the Traitors got their way.
Right.
So I hate to be the person, but it's all on them because they're the ones who walked in so salty, and that decision I feel like ultimately was the nail in their coffin. Jesus, I'm coming in with all of the puns today.
Yes, yes.
It's what happens when you write poetry for a living.
Is there a market for writing poetry as a living?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There is.
I didn't know.
I used to read. I mean, I loved growing up. I've just recently restarted reading Shel Silverstein because I have a couple of nieces and nephews.
That's true. That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I didn't know. You said it, and I don't know. Now you're going to vote me out because I said that. I must be a traitor.
Or maybe I'm just really bad at this game. Oh, Lord, have mercy on my soul.
So apparently Kevin wasn't the only one who thought Fierce was safe this time. A post roundtable discussion has most of them saying they each thought they were the only ones thinking Fierce, and it changed at the roundtable. So it looks like Kevin bringing up Fierce's name really was, it was like the boulder at the top of the hill. And he came over and he just, touched the boulder and it rolled and picked up steam, and that was it. All these people who thought they were standing alone in the Fierce camp, all of a sudden it's like boom. And that also explains, we get a confessional from Fierce saying, well, I didn't even hear my name was being thrown around. Well, first of all, if they're good, you won't hear that your name is being tossed around. But second of all, I think their name wasn't tossed around. It was just everyone was thinking it, but like, well, we don't think anyone else is, so we didn't want to bring it up. And then boom, it happened.
It's kind of one of those weird chain reactions. I was surprised. And I mean, just watching some of the reactions after like the banishment, I mean, a lot of people were kind of stunned that it even seemed to pan out that way. So it's one of those weird moments where we talk about luck and how it comes into this game. And like, unfortunately, luck was not on Fierce's side.
No.
So poor thing. But also just they kind of, again, dug their own grave.
Yeah. All right. So we return to Traitors Tower. Kuzi brings up recruiting. And so we finally see that scene that I was talking about earlier of her telling Mike that she's heard his name. She plans to let him decide. But then there's a knock at the door. I'm thinking, because I don't think production would say we're forcing you to recruit. They might, but I don't think so. I think this is about the right time to have that situation where they put 3 people, what was it called, on trial or something like that.
I was wondering the same thing, if trial is coming up.
Yeah. And so that's my thought, is they're going to have to name 3 possible people. Sounds like you think the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my mind is going to, if that's going to happen, who are the 3 people that they're going to put up? Because there's a lot of different strategies that can go into this. And I'm not really sure. I mean, right now, they've been operating a lot out of fear. And I'm wondering how much that would play into that kind of a decision.
Yeah. And especially since, the previews show us that some people finally start throwing Kuzi's name around. Is it because, this could go either way. Does Kuzi say, okay, make me one of the, 3 people on trial so that I look less suspicious? Or is Kuzi's name still not brought up and people are finally like, wow, for yet another time, Kuzi's name has not been brought up, including even when the traitors could put 3 people on trial. So I'm not sure which way. I feel like Kuzi is bold enough that she would put herself into the mix.
I agree. And I think that's why we could see what we see in the previews. Even if it's done, and I don't not trust her with this decision, but it's a risky move. Really, really risky, because only one of those 3 can go. Yeah. So it's just it's a choice.
Yes.
But it could be a game-winning choice at the end of the day. So
it could. So yeah, who do you think will end up being put there? And then we've got a whole day before someone actually gets picked. But
I'm trying to remember. I focused so much watching that promo on Kuzi that I totally forgot to think about anybody else. So now I'm trying to think. I can't remember about anybody. I feel like Kevin is definitely on the hot seat going into that. I don't know, because I can see like they don't want to necessarily show their hand too much with him in their distrust. Maybe this is the time to really go after him, though. I'm not quite sure. I think he's definitely on the hot seat. I'm trying to think of anybody else.
See, well, you think I think you hit the key point. I don't think you want to give Kevin warning. I don't think you put him on trial, because if he's on trial, he could go full bore. Here are all of my suspicions. Now, he could also try to retreat into a hole, but Of course, he also thinks Mary is a traitor, so he might just kiss up to her more, and that would be absolutely worthless. The funny thing is, he's like, I need to make an alliance with the traitor, not realizing he's been in an alliance with the traitor the entire game because of Kuzi, because, you know.
This boy.
Yeah.
This boy. Like, but honestly, I think that's a really good point. With that logic, I don't necessarily think they'll put him on there. I think he'll be up for discussion, though, that his name will definitely be floated. Trayvon's going to be probably a big target just because of how much attention he's already garnered in the house. Those are I think he's the top person. I'm trying to run through everybody in my head now. Jesus, when you put me on the spot.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody.
Yeah, it could be anyone.
Mai could definitely be somebody who is, because Mai has been another person who is erratic and all over the place. And if people are looking at people like Fierce and they're like, time to say goodbye to that kind of a personality while we're trying to win a game, that really could land Mai in a very similar position, I think. So.
Yeah. And it is interesting also, speaking of Kevin's, I was just thinking this as I mentioned, Kevin's alliance. Rick did have a good point when Rick said, there's probably someone from reality TV among the traitors.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up because it feels like that has to be the case. Am I wrong?
Right. And Kevin has not latched onto that. He knows he's not, and obviously Rick is gone. Fierce is gone. And that leaves May and Kuzi and who else is? Oh, Gurleen, I guess, technically.
Yep.
So he should really be looking at, I don't know why he's not looking at Kuzi closer, quite honestly. She is the most obvious person to be a traitor. Now, I know in the past, Faithful have jumped on and said, well, you're obviously could be a traitor because you're an actor or something like that. And it's like, no, their job description does not automatically mean that they're a traitor. But in Kuzi's case, I think it kind of does.
Right. Kuzi's reputation precedes itself. Like I am not like I've just recently started watching Big Brother Canada, and she is one of the first people. Like her and Kevin were two of the only people I knew coming into this. So I was like, oh, glad they're cast. But like her reputation from Big Brother Canada should be enough for you to look at this and be like, I don't know about this girl. And I love that she's fooled people so far. It's incredible.
Yeah, Kevin should be saying, if I wasn't cast as a traitor, then it seems to me that she should be. So
you'd think it'd be common sense. But we've seen people on other versions of this who are playing with other celebrities look at that and be like, nah.
Yeah.
That's not it.
Yeah.
That's
and
not
that could
it.
Be.
And just laugh it off.
Right. So, other than that, I would say overall, just looking at the game overall, Trayvon and May still playing terrible games. I feel bad for Trayvon because he knows it now, but he might end up sticking around longer because he knows it. He could just end up being, at this point, he could end up being the person in the pocket of whoever makes it to the end. If a traitor can pocket him, like I said, it's like the Quentin situation. And so we'll see. And then May is just so waffly. I had such high hopes for her in the first episode, then she just went downhill fast.
The craziness that she brings to this is definitely at least brings an entertainment factor. But I'm disappointed because I thought she was gonna kind of connect the dots a lot faster, and I was gonna be excited for a Master Chef person to be able to figure it out. Well, like other shows like House of Villains, it can't connect the dots. So it's like on here, I was like, come on, let's do it. Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't. Do you have any other final thoughts on this episode?
I don't, honestly. I think we covered everything. I think Kuzi's killing it, but I'm nervous for her in the next episode.
Literally and figuratively killing it.
Yes. I'm nervous for her moving forward because I think things are not necessarily always going to go her way as they have been. But Gonna be curious to see if and how she can wriggle out of that.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we finish up, I want to let everyone know about some more great stuff we have here on the Traidar podcast, both coming up and posted in recent days. I mentioned earlier that I did a great interview with trader Melissa B, and that was a lot of fun. She was great to talk to. Talked about anything and everything, including her own potential mistakes that she made. Meanwhile, Matthew interviewed Blake from the Traitors Australia, and without spoiling anything about where Blake finished up, this was great too, especially since I think it was basically his first interview since the show. So just make sure you subscribe to the Traidar and you'll get all of that. Coming up here for the Traitors Canada, we have still more great guests for coming weeks, including the hilarious fan favorite Annabelle from the recent second Australia season next week. And then later I'll have one of the winners from the New Zealand season, plus more. So, make sure you catch up on the New Zealand season before one of the winners pops up in your as a guest host here. Abigail, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at It's Abigail Adams on Twitter and TikTok. Those are like my major platforms that I use. And you can also follow Wicked Unscripted. That is the podcast that I host with my friend Sarah Talks Big Brother. And we just talk about largely Big Brother's our big thing, but we talk about Survivor, we talk about Amazing Race, House of Villains, all that good stuff. So looking forward to having some special guests coming up too. Have to solidify them, but some fun special guests we have on the way.
Okay, that sounds good. Now it is time to finish the Traidar Traitor game.
Ooh. Ah.
I've been dreading this.
Did you lie to me?
It was so bad.
Your lie?
Yeah. Oh, it was
Okay.
Embarrassingly bad. I feel like if you noticed it, it was just glaringly obvious.
Uh-oh. Well, the only thing I have to ask, and it's kind of, if it isn't a lie, then I'm embarrassed because I was kind of embarrassed when I asked it about the writing poetry for a living part.
Oh, I tried so hard and I added 2 words in there that didn't help when I said for a living, or 3 words. When I said for a living, I'm like,
Yes.
There it goes. There it goes. That was
Yes.
the end of that. I was so close.
I was like, she works for people.com. I don't think she writes poetry for a living.
I meant to say for fun,
Yeah.
not for a living.
Well, the funny
and
thing
I
is
said that.
I mean, if I had been thinking about the game at the time, I wouldn't have even asked you anything. I would have waited. But my instant response was, this happens too often where I'm so into the podcast that I'm not thinking about the game all the time. And
well, that's what just happened to me. So I'll tell you, I have 0 guess. You ruined me on this because I literally, at that moment, I was like, oh my God. And it clicked with me. And I was like, oh, you silly girl. So I need to know what your lie was.
Okay. Mine was pretty sneaky. It was early. I snuck it in. I said that my prediction from last week was that Rick would be banished.
Oh.
But actually, I said on the podcast last week that Trevon would be my prediction.
Curse you, Dave.
So, yes. So
That's great. That was good. Oh, you win by a landslide on that. Willingly accept defeat.
I've done this a lot more. So
that's very fair.
Come up with new ones, and it's funny because when Matthew edits this, he'll listen to it and he'll be like, he'll message me and he'll be like, oh, I spotted your lie, because he's like, when I snuck in the other ones. My funniest one was the first time I was on with him. I mentioned something about my daughters. I don't have daughters. I have sons. And I had a friend who was listening to the podcast, and before he got to the end of it, he messaged me and he was like, daughters, what are you talking about?
When did you have those?
Just wait for it. Just wait for it.
That's great. Oh God. Well, I'll definitely, if I ever get another chance, I am definitely going to come up with a way better lie and think that through a little bit more. I thought that was going to come out so smoothly because I had a couple of little things and I was being so punny and it just.
If you had said for fun, it might have gone by. It was for a living that got me. You were right.
I was so, I don't know why I was overthinking that. And as soon as I said for a living, I was like, good job. I knew I was trying to make it my lie. And I was just like, not doing it well because I used to write poetry for fun. I don't write poetry for fun anymore. So either of them would have been correct, but I gave away so badly with that. So whoops. That's so much fun, though.
Yeah. All right. So there we have it. Episode 5 of the Traitors Canada. Anyone who wants to reach out and let me know what you think. I am all over social media and reality TV podcasting. I podcast, of course, about both Survivor and Big Brother on the Rob Has a Podcast network. The name of the show is Why Blank Lost. You can also find all my various accounts through my Linktree at Linktree/David Bloomberg with a dot before the EE. Or you can find me on most text-based social media like Twitter and Blue Sky as at David Bloomberg, and on the video platforms TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram as at David Bloomberg TV. And because Threads is connected to Instagram, that I'm at David Bloomberg TV there as well. Speaking of TikTok, which we were earlier, especially, I post 3 or 4 reality TV short videos on all those sites every day. Right now, Big Brother is kind of going down. Well, it is literally. Yeah, literally. But the number of videos is also Big Brother is decreasing, while Survivor UK, the Traitors Canada, occasionally House of Villains, all those are in there. But again, still 3 or 4 per day. Everyone should also make sure to check out the accounts for this podcast overall. You can find us on Instagram as at the Traitors Podcast, or on Twitter as at the Traitors Pod. You can also email the Traitors Podcast at gmail.com. And if you'd like to help support the costs of publishing this podcast, you can drop Matthew a few bucks, or, the Canadian equivalent, since we're talking about the Traitors Canada, at Coffee, which is ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. I will be back here again in a week with Annabelle. Hope you tune in, and feel free to reach out in the meantime through social media. Check us both out on TikTok. And Abigail, it was great having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Jinx, you owe me.
Yes. All right.
But yes, thank you so much.
We will see you in a week, or, hey, sooner than that, hopefully. Bye.
See ya.